Hello guys. I'm gonna play with my robot a little bit here. It might be kind of mundane, but sometimes doing certain things remotely can be that way. Since I'm gonna be accessing my robot remotely, which means I don't need to have a monitor hooked to it, I don't need to have a keyboard hooked to it. So that's kind of cool. If you talk to it, I'm gonna get something that's part of what's called the secure shell. This allows me to talk to the robot in a sort of encrypted way, or kind of a secret way. Well, it's not that big a deal. Normally, you could log into somewhere and you have to type in your password and all that, and if somebody's looking over your shoulder, they can see what you're typing. The way I've got it set up, we pass what's called a key, which goes from the computer I'm logging in from to the robot, and it gets exchanged with the robot to see if the keys compare, and if they are, it lets me log in. And I don't have to type in a password, which makes things quicker and a little more efficient. Okay. My goal today is to copy over a file written in a language called C, which was made famous by Kronenberg and Ritchie, so I can control the robot. And let's see if it's here. Here it is. And source code is what you and I might understand. But the computer needs to use ones and zeros, so we'll need to convert it, and I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. On a DOS system, you might use dir to find the file, and then use type to display a file. Okay, now I'm going to use a secure shell, or a secure copy, to get the file that I need over to the robot. And I can do that through the network. I don't have to copy it to a floppy and then bring it over to the robot and load it in. I can do it all directly. And the file was p.c, which is a program to control the parallel port. I could file on here and then move it over, but I think it would be more accurate if I copied the source code of what you can understand over to the robot and then recompile it into what the robot can understand. Okay, so let's see, secure copy, the name of the file, until I want it to go to the robot, to my home directory. You can see that copies. It's actually kind of a shortcut. I could get real and you see that's a long way. So if you know a few shortcuts, it can make it easier for you. But it accomplishes the same thing. Generally, the SEP will assume that you're using the same username. You don't have to type it in. If I wanted to log into somebody else on the robot, then I would use that name @robot and wherever directory I wanted to copy it to. Okay, let's get into the robot. We use a secure shell. I say, hey robot, I want to talk to you. Okay, let me get in. Cool. So let's see if we've got that file that we just copied, and we do. Okay. PvP.C, as I may have mentioned before, it's for controlling the parallel port, so we can turn on lights, turn off lights, turn on motors, turn off motors, and all sorts of things. But the computer itself can't understand that C code. It's got to be compiled or translated into ones and zeros that the computer can't understand. And on Ubuntu and Debian systems, you have a package called Build Essential. And if you sudo apt-get install or get that and put it on your system, then it will allow you to compile the C code or the C language or the code the human can understand. Okay. Part of that Build Essential is what's called the GNU C compiler, or GCC for short. So if we want to compile something, we say GCC. We want to give it the program we want to compile or translate into what the computer can use, and then tell it what program or what file we want to use to call when we want to use it. In this case, we'll call it PPP. Okay. You could say PP. Oops, not command. I know it's there. And there it is. But with Linux and Unix systems, it won't automatically execute a program. You have to tell the system exactly where it is. And this kind of makes it a bit more secure. So we want to run it from the current directory. And it'll, in this case, since I didn't give it any argument, it gave me an example usage or the way I should use it to tell the computer what to do. Okay. Oops. We'll do that again. So we'll say 1H, which means turn on line 1, and we'll turn on line 2. If we want to turn them off, I'll be using L instead of an H. So, now I actually know what's going on, but we're going to play pretend here. The parallel port requires what's called super user powers, or on our Windows system you might call it the administrator or admin. Okay, it's no problem. But you can use what's called the sudo command, which allows us to temporarily pretend to be the administrator or the super user. That command is called sudo. It has to be set up ahead of time, and your administrator can do that for you. I'm not going to go into it here. So now if I go PPP, let me turn on 1 and 2. Now it operates correctly. And lets us know what the status of the parallel port lines were, printer port, and what they are after we ran the program, which is absolutely correct. And I have some LEDs connected to the printer port, so if I turn on those lines, I can see those lights light up and the correct ones are lit. Okay, I'm going to turn them off now. And the results were, the old was the first two ones were turned on, and then after were turned off. And they're turned off. Cool. Well, I want to do something simple. I'm only controlling LEDs right now. But with additional circuitry, I can actually control motors. So with this robot, I can control it to go left or right, forwards, backwards, or even stop. And a host of other things depending on what I have connected to the parallel port, what kind of special electronics connected to the parallel port. Now, you see, why don't I go somewhere and buy a program to do all this? Well, on this system, I don't have a whole lot of space. So, if I can write my own program, oops, I'm blind here. If I can write my own program to do what I want to do, then possibly I can make it smaller. And that's one of the things the C language allows us to do, make tighter programs. On this particular system, the whole hard drive is only 4 gigs. You might gasp at the size of it, but for the robot, I really don't need any more than that. In case so far, I've only used about a gig. And I still got twice that amount left for other things. So, keeping the program small is quite important, compact, because we have what's called a small footprint. Okay. In fact, if I change directory to this equal source, and I do a listing, or which would be dir under DOS, I have some other programs. Okay. I need to copy its source code and keep it in directory, so I've got all the files together. You know, I could set up a web server to interact with the robot, but gosh, that takes up so much space. It's slow. In some cases, it may not be secure. So I can use some special programs that use what's called sockets. So the program is extremely small. I can communicate with the robot and not be that much of a load on the system. In fact, I'll use server.c for that on the robot, and I'll use a program called client.c to connect with the server. Now I'm probably going to take the original files and I'm going to modify them so I can increase the security more and allow it to do special things. But later on that. On DOS you have what's called batch files, and they usually ended in a BAT extension. On Linux and Unix we have what's called shell files. And we could vim, which is the equivalent of edit or notepad. And I've already created the shell file. I'm going to retype it, but here I've got these stem signs that say, hey, it's pretty marked so I know what this specific command does. And that shell file will automatically execute. So I have to issue what's called a change the mode. I want to have it be executable. Oops. So I'll tell it that. So I'm using the power port, I need to tell it we need to have series of powers. Oops. And there we go, I just executed the batch file. So now I can, as I said before, control the parallel port, turn on motors, turn off motors, solder, turn left, right, or a multitude of other things with a very small amount of code. And then I can kind of gather everything together and put it in a batch file or a shell file and do many more things, so I don't have to type the PVP command 3 zillion times. I can kind of put a whole list of commands and have them executed at once. In this case we executed 2. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. Okay, I probably talked long enough, so we're gonna log out or exit and come back to the original machine. Check you later.